Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are diving into Atlas of AI by Kate Crawford today.
Great pick.
I have to say, this one has been on my list for a while, and I've seen a lot about it lately.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious to get into it, especially with you. And I'm really interested in this idea of the hidden costs of AI.
Yeah.
You know, everyone talks about AI. It's like everywhere you turn these days. But
Right.
this idea of what's going on behind the scenes, what are the real costs of all of this? I think that's a side of the story we don't hear enough about.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what Crawford does so well in the book. She really takes us beyond this sort of abstract idea of AI as,
Yeah.
algorithms and lines of code and really grounds it in the material, the physical, the human labor, like the really messy realities that kind of go into building and powering these systems.
Okay, so where do we even begin? I mean, when I think of AI, I think lines of code, algorithms. Like you said, it feels so intangible. So how do we even start to uncover those hidden costs? Where do we even start this deep dive?
Well, I think a good place to start is with the materials, actually.
Materials. Okay, so we're talking like the actual physical components, the
Yeah.
chips, the processors, all of that.
Yeah, that's part of it. But Crawford actually takes us even further upstream, I guess you could say. She takes us to the lithium mines of Silver Peak, Nevada.
Silver Peak, Nevada.
Yeah, and it's this really stark contrast
Yeah.
to the gleaming tech campuses of Silicon Valley that we're all so used to seeing.
So what is a lithium mine? I mean, to help me connect the dots here, what does a lithium mine have to do with AI?
Basically everything. So lithium, right, essential for batteries. Batteries power pretty much everything in the AI world.
Right.
From, our smartphones, which are becoming more AI dependent every day,
Right.
to the massive data centers that are storing and processing all this information.
Yeah.
So every time you ask Siri a question or you get a personalized recommendation, you're tapping into this vast network that relies on lithium-ion batteries, and that should give us pause.
Because of the environmental impact of mining lithium.
Exactly. Extracting and processing lithium, it takes a toll on the environment. You've got habitat destruction, water depletion, and that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Hi.
Atlas of AI really makes you think about the hidden costs
Yeah.
that are kind of swept under the rug, in this pursuit of the latest AI gadget.
So my desire to have the newest iPhone or whatever it is, that's actually fueling this demand and therefore fueling all of these negative consequences.
That's exactly it. And it's not just the environment we need to be thinking about.
Oh.
Crawford also wants us to think about the people.
Right.
The people who are living near these mines, the ones who are most impacted by the social and economic consequences.
Right. The people who are actually doing the mining. Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow. I have to admit, that connection never really occurred to me before. It makes you realize that AI, I mean, for all the talk about how it's going to change the future and all of that,
Right.
it's still very much connected to some very real world issues in the present.
Absolutely. And speaking of real world issues, we should talk about AI and labor.
Okay. Yeah. Because that's the other thing that always comes up.
Yeah.
Like robots are going to take our jobs and all of that. Does Crawford buy into that?
She complicates it for sure. One of the most interesting ideas, I think from the book, is this idea of Potemkin AI.
Potemkin AI. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
not familiar.
Yeah,
I've never heard that term.
imagine you're on a website and you get that little chat bot pops up and it's how can I help you today?
Right.
Seems intelligent, seems automated, but behind the scenes, there's often a whole team of low-paid workers
Okay.
in a digital sweatshop, basically.
Hold on, wait. So you're telling me some of these AI-powered services that we think are super advanced, they're actually not that AI after all.
That's the thing about Potemkin AI, right?
Right.
It's about making it look like everything's automated.
Yeah.
But behind the curtain, there are humans doing a lot of the work. Labeling data, moderating content, even training those chatbots to sound more, human-like.
So instead of AI getting rid of jobs, it's actually
Yeah.
creating new forms of labor, but they're just hidden.
That's exactly what Crawford wants us to see. It's not just about robots replacing us.
Oh, okay.
It's about how this technology is changing the nature of work itself.
It's mind-blowing how something that's supposed to be so futuristic is rooted in these age-old practices of, labor exploitation.
Totally. And Crawford makes this really interesting comparison in the book. She compares Amazon's automated warehouses
Okay.
to the 19th century Chicago meatpacking industry.
Whoa, okay, that's not a connection I would make.
I-
Amazon warehouses and 19th century meatpacking. What's the three line?
Both are about using technology to control workers and maximize efficiency, often at a human cost.
Okay.
Think about, like, the meatpacking plants, right? They use technology to dictate the pace and the flow of work on these disassembly lines.
Right.
And Amazon is doing something similar in its warehouses.
With AI, right. Like the algorithms that track worker productivity.
Exactly. Robots that are determining the pace of work. It's all about optimization.
At the expense of, like, worker well-being and autonomy.
Exactly. And this isn't a new phenomenon either. Crawford points out, think about the invention of the stopwatch. That was about tracking worker productivity.
Right.
Or even something like Google's True Time, which is all about, like, temporal control.
Wow. Okay. So much for AI ushering in an era of leisure. It sounds like it's just intensifying a lot of the pressures of work, maybe even making them worse in some ways.
It's complicated, for sure. And we're just getting started.
I'm ready to dive in. What else did Crawford cover? So we've talked about the physical stuff, the materials, and then the labor side of things, which is, it's a lot, and kind of, frankly, terrifying.
It is.
What other hidden costs did Crawford uncover? What else do we need to be thinking about?
Well, this next one is a little maybe close to home for some listeners.
Okay.
Crawford dives into the world of surveillance
Oh, boy.
and how AI is being used to track and monitor us.
See, that's one of those words, surveillance, I immediately get, like, a little creeped out.
Right.
I'm like, I should put on a tinfoil hat or something.
Yeah. It sounds like a conspiracy theory,
Yeah.
but Crawford argues that we're already living in this world where surveillance is becoming the norm.
Okay, but I always think of, like, AI as algorithms,
Yeah.
right? Like, how does that translate into the physical world of, like, cameras and being watched?
So it's all connected, right? Remember those massive data sets we were talking about earlier?
Right. The ones used to train the AI.
Exactly. Well, some of those data sets, they're being used for surveillance,
Yeah.
and they're only getting bigger and more complex.
So it's not just, like, our online activity, they're tracking our physical movements, too.
Exactly. Think about facial recognition.
Oh, yeah.
It's powered by AI.
Right.
It's everywhere. Airports, shopping malls, even, walking down the street, you probably are being captured on some facial recognition.
Right.
And then there are companies like Vigilant Solutions.
Vigilant Solution?
Yeah, Crawford talks about them. They have this huge database of license plate images
Wait, license plates? Like, how are they even getting that information?
everywhere. Traffic cameras, parking garages, those things that, like, scan your license plate when you, like, drive somewhere.
Right.
And they're not just storing it, they're selling access to it.
Wait, they're selling it. Who's buying that information?
Oh, everyone. Private investigators, law enforcement, even, like, insurance companies.
See, that just feels wrong.
It's a huge market for this kind of data.
It feels like we have zero control over our own information.
And it gets even more personal. Crawford talks about how Amazon is playing a big role in all of this.
Amazon? Okay, I mean, I know they're collecting all my data from, like, my shopping habits and all that, but
Yeah.
how are they involved in surveillance?
Think about their Ring doorbell cameras.
Right. Okay.
They're marketed as a way to keep your home safe. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I have one. I thought it was, just like a little security thing.
Right, exactly. But they're also feeding into this massive network of surveillance data that Amazon is building.
Wait, really?
Yeah, and especially when you combine that with, like, the Amazon Neighbors app where people are encouraged to share footage,
Oh, right. Yeah.
report suspicious activity.
Like, we're becoming our own little surveillance state.
Right. And it gets even more blurry because Amazon is partnering with law enforcement,
No kidding.
giving them access to Ring footage, even giving them incentives to get people to use Ring.
I don't know, that's a little too close for comfort.
It's a lot to take in, that's for sure.
So, I mean, what are we supposed to do with all of this? Am I just supposed to, like, throw away my smartphone and live off the grid?
It's not about unplugging completely,
Okay.
but it is about being aware.
Okay.
Being aware of how these technologies are being used, asking questions about the data that's being collected, and then demanding more transparency from the companies that are making these decisions.
So it's about taking back some control.
Exactly. If we don't, we really do risk sleepwalking into this future where our every move is tracked and analyzed.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of dark stuff here.
We have.
It's kind of depressing, frankly. Is there any room for optimism? Like, what does the future hold? Is there a way forward? That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
After all this, like, is there any hope? Does Crawford, like, offer any solutions in the book?
Well, she does, but it's not like, here's the magic button kind of solutions.
Right.
It's more about, like, a fundamental shift in how we think about AI.
Okay, so like what, like rethink our relationship with it. What does that even mean?
I think it starts with like letting go of these simple stories we tell ourselves about AI,
Yeah.
Like it's either going to save us all or it's going to destroy us.
Right, the Terminator scenario.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Crawford really wants us to see that AI isn't this like independent force.
Okay.
It's a tool, and like any tool, it can be used in a lot of different ways.
So it's not about like good AI versus bad AI. It's about how we use it.
Exactly. It's about who's controlling it,
Right.
what purpose it's serving.
So, okay, so how do we do that? How do we ensure that it's used for good?
It's not going to be easy, but Crawford argues that we need to move beyond this like purely technical approach to AI
Okay.
and start thinking about it in a more holistic way,
Like thinking about the ethics of it.
Exactly. The social implications.
Right. Not just can we do this,
Yeah.
but should we do this?
Precisely. And that's where all these other issues we've been talking about come in.
Right, like the data, the labor.
Exactly. We can't address AI without addressing those systemic issues, like data justice, labor rights, climate justice.
So it's all connected.
It's all connected. We need stronger regulations around data privacy, fairer labor practices. We need to be thinking about the environmental impact.
It's overwhelming when you think about all the things that need to change.
It is, but it's also empowering.
Okay, how so?
Because it means we have the power to actually do something about it. We're not just helpless bystanders.
So where do we even begin?
I think it starts with conversations like these,
Yeah.
raising awareness, educating ourselves and others,
Yeah.
demanding more transparency from the companies, from the people in power.
Holding them accountable.
Exactly. And supporting the organizations that are fighting for a more just and equitable future for everyone, not just a select few.
It's a call to action then.
It really is.
Well, on that note, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about, a lot to maybe even, I don't know if wrestle with is the right word, but
It's heavy stuff.
it is. It's a lot to unpack, that's for sure. But it's so important. And, as we're all interacting with this technology more and more every day,
Yeah.
it's really crucial to be having these conversations. So to our listener, thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
It's been, as always, enlightening, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.